the most popular, the most acclaimed Italian restaurant in the tri-state area.
The museum actually put together display cases of all of the relics.
They want to know more about the story.
That becomes the backbone to who gets interviewed next. Reenactments. We have this large engine of people that have consumed either the restaurant, estimated 1 million customers, thousands of people who have read the book.
First time authors maybe sell 200 copies. She sold close to 7,000 copies.
As an author, I think everybody's biggest goal, right, is to see whatever they make transform, whether it's film or TV.
We are back today. Years ago, we spoke to Maria Palmer and Joseph Costanzo Jr. about their book, On the Rocks. Today, they're back with more news to share. So welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining us again, Maria Palmer and Joseph Costanzo Jr.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
If you don't mind, let's take a second just to remind the audience about the book and like a 1 or 2 sentence summary about the book that we talked about last time.
Yes, absolutely. So the book is called On the Rocks, the Primadonna story. It's a narrative nonfiction book, which means that it's a true story, but it reads like fiction. And it's actually the rise and fall of my father, Joseph Costanzo Jr.'s journey at our family restaurant, the Primadonna. Through the time frame is the golden era of hospitality from the mid 80s to the early 2000s.
And we all loved it. I mean, I remember the food stories, the wine stories, the customer stories, the behind the scenes stories, the big personalities. It was a lot of fun. And everyone said, this should be a movie. And now the news surprise, the update is it's becoming a movie. So can you give us a summary of the process and the lessons you've learned from that process, going from best-selling book to documentary?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was sharing with you a little before the podcast that I don't think that there's a traditional path to doing this. We always knew, actually, even before I wrote this book, my dad always said, this story should be a movie on screen. But after we had the book done and it got a lot of critical acclaim and reviews, and we got it out there and people read it and they, seemed to enjoy it. And the chapters are short. There's a lot of action that really translates well onto a screen, whether it be a full-length feature or a series, kind of like a Cheers or a This Is Us. And I happened to meet the director, Ryan Rust, from Venture Road Productions, which is right here in Pittsburgh, on a radio interview. Whenever I was promoting the book, he had just come out with his first documentary. By the end of the conversation with Ryan, not only was he helpful, he basically said, I see a lot of synergy between the two of us, what about me? And I said, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's really nice because he also has the connections within not only just the city of Pittsburgh, because he works at an advertising agency doing commercial productions all over the country. And so the first step in that process was getting some financing to do key interviews that will be, documentary style, sit down at a table or a bar stool and tell some stories. And so on Sunday, that's going to be with my dad, my mom, and the former head chef of the Primadonna, my dad's cousin, Pino Costanzo. And from that footage, that's going to allow Ryan to kind of chat with some bigger execs and some streaming agencies and or film festivals. Whatever stories or whatever information is shared on Sunday, that becomes the backbone to who gets interviewed next. What stories may become reenactments if this gets, picked up in the way that we are all hoping that it would. It means a lot to me because my parents are basically the anchor point for the story, and that's where we're starting. So Ryan has done a great job with that and has spent a lot of time with our family and getting to know the story. And I think he has the creative know-how to execute the project. I truly do.
There's a lot of really, really exciting things about to happen. The story itself is so heartfelt, so dramatic. For both of you, what's your biggest concern when it comes to capturing this beautiful story? And what are you most excited about?
I always like to start with the good. So let's say, the biggest excitement as an author, I think everybody's biggest goal, right, is to see whatever they make transform into different mediums, right? Like whether it's film or TV. Some of the people that are on Ryan's crew have done some really large things. And, one of the guys, the cinematographer, he does a lot with the History Channel and he works on the show, The Food That Built America. So he does all of the historical reenactments. What's your biggest excitement and your biggest concern?
Well, the biggest excitement that I have is that people have gravitated to the story, and all of a sudden, they want to know more about the story and more about myself and Maria. And that's heartwarming to me. We go places and she speaks, and a lot of the question and answers. People are excited to see her and to see me. And you know 20 years prior to that, people knew who I was, because of the restaurant. But, more people they're coming up and saying, well, we read the book. So, I mean, that's it. And then, we tell them about the documentary and they're excited, people being excited about, our story. He wants to get a person with my personality, of course, if they do reenact this, uh, who would that be? And how would it translate into like my personality? We had talked a, a few years ago, and I always thought that if there was a movie, Robert De Niro could play me. But now he has to play my father. You know what I mean? I'm just enjoying the ride. For the last 20 years, I've been kind of bored, and this kind of reignited me. When I got into Primadonna, I was 32. I left at probably 48, 49. I'm 72 now. We're always doing things, and it kind of excites me, and it got me on board. Let's just say.
I love that. And what I'm realizing is, and we all know this, you have to leave your house to go to the movies, but TV comes into our house. And
Right.
as I'm hearing you talk again, I'm hoping you're going to promise us that you're going to bring your big personality and your big heart to the screen for us all to enjoy you. Because I'm thinking about the stories I read 2 years ago, and now watching you on camera reliving that. A, from an audience member point of view, that's exciting for me. I hope you're bringing all that energy to it. But B, I just I'm seeing so much opportunity for what else can happen when when the world falls in love with Joe Costanzo. My gosh, it's gonna be vibrating out there and the story behind it all. And so promise us you're gonna bring all that the heart that you brought to your book as well.
I really appreciate it, Joe. I am excited, and I hope that can translate, into a film documentary type of thing.
You've thrown and hosted some very engaging, dynamic, crowded, happy events. Can you explain a little bit behind why you did it, how you did it, and some memories from those events?
All right, so I should tell you that we were talking about Ruthie, my co-author, a little bit before we started recording today. And Ruthie and I are, I think it's 5% or 2% of the planet as far as what our personality is. To put it bluntly, we're introverted extroverts, which means that we are the total empaths, the feelers, the people that worry about not only what other people think, but just how other people consume things. I have a long history in large scale events in the nonprofit world. That experience in itself taught me a lot about people and events and how different people can consume different events. And so I'll give everybody a little pointer if you are planning an event, because again, everybody comes from a different, personality. Instead of thinking about me and what I want to say and what I want to do, the first people that I think about, and same thing with writing, is I create an archetype of the people that might end up at my event. We had a 500-person invite-only book launch at the Heinz History Center, which is the Smithsonian of Pittsburgh, America's #1 history center, just this year. And it was filled with all different types of bells and whistles. How I decided to come up with the schedule of the day and what would happen during the day as I came up with all of these characters, right? So there were people that were traveling for long distances, truly different personalities too. So knowing that, you have to sort of cater to the audience, find ways to interact with the room versus the people in the room. So the coordinator of the museum actually put together display cases of all of the relics of my dad's stuff. So anything from jackets and salad dressing and tennis shoes to plaques and all of the old artifacts. We had drink tokens and Primadonna wine with, dad's picture on it. We also built these pop-ups, which you could take a look if you go onto my website, which is just my name, mariacpalmer.com. Under our events page, you'll see in almost all of my events, I bring these large pop-ups that are between 6 and 10 feet high. And they have a scene of the restaurant or the food or my dad or my parents. So they're fun because you can walk around the room and you can take pictures, of either the pop-ups, or if you're brave enough, you can get in a picture with Joe without having to ask Joe for a picture. We had a really tight schedule and we moved from thing to thing. So we had, a welcome speech. We had my dad do something that he used to do right before service at the restaurant, where he would, ask the servers if they were ready, the bartenders, the cooks, and everybody in between, the dishwashers. So we did something kind of similar to that to kind of start out the event and, to get people's attention, and also parallels. I had raffles throughout to kind of keep people's attention, with donated items, which of course included the book. We had bookmarks printed out that, talked about the importance of reviewing books on Amazon, even if you don't buy a book on Amazon, and how it's kind of like hugging an independent author. We had panel discussions, we had readings, we had so much going on. We had food, for people that just kind of came hungry. They weren't leaving hungry. The events that we've had since then, they're all different. Ladies book club, and we actually brought some food to supplement that event. The other was at, somebody's house, sit around in their living room and chat and tell stories. And the food stuff that has sprung, like the cook and book experiences, they've all been partial flukes, but also partially listening to what people are saying, right? Like, our story does have such a food element and a food nostalgia piece to it. And there's not, you're in hospitality. When you go out now, it's not the same as what it was in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s either. Things are very automated. Nobody really wants to deliver service. They want to just, throw the product at you and take a picture and text it to you, right?
That is such a thoughtful explanation. And so, like, you've got a lot going on to make sure your crowd stays happy. That shows one of the many reasons why you keep doing this, because people want that experience from you. And you mentioned hospitality, but I think that just goes back to the prima donna style, the way it was. People want that level of quality and care and comfort.
Yeah. And even for the Heinz History Center, we had the whole Heinz History Center staff on our event. And then my sister has, probably about 10 to 15 girls that she's still so close with from high school. We hired all of them for the day, and they came and they were extra staff.
And that's the way it was at the restaurants. I mean, most restaurants, at the time didn't have a maitre d', which I did, somebody seating people, the servers, they did the serving, had bus people. So, we were kind of overstaffed, but that's giving tremendous attention to detail when it comes to service. And a lot of these events that we have, which is really nice, people now know about the book. And people in Western Pennsylvania, if you didn't go to the Primadonna, you had heard about it. So people knew about it. I mean, one review that we got in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, said that, the restaurant went, from a little neighborhood restaurant to something that the most popular, the most acclaimed Italian restaurant in the tri-state area, and that's Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania.
And I have to assume they want to meet you. They want to say hello to you again. They want to eat something with you. I have to assume from a chef point of view, they want you to take a bite of their food and they want to know, is it good enough for you?
That's exactly right, Joe. I mean, people, they knew about the food, knew about the service, and now they're actually feeding us when we go to an event. We're so happy to see you. And I'm thinking, wow, I mean, all this developed because of the book. Most people have to self-publish a book. Maria was fortunate to get it published. And, most first-time authors maybe sell 200 copies. She sold close to 7,000 copies of a book that came out 2.5 years ago. So it's kind of an anomaly, just like the restaurant was.
And because we have a foodie audience, I'm going to indulge for a second. For those who love the book, we know your personality. When someone does bring in a bite for you to try, are you at this point in your life, are you more toward honest feedback or polite feedback? What am I going to hear from you if you take a bite of something?
If I really like it, I really, really try to say how great it is and how tasteful it is, how delicious it is. I know that the food isn't that good or the service isn't that good, but I understand the situation. And so when you're 32, you're more aggressive, more tenacious. When you're 72, you're more laid back. And my wife always tells me, you go to a restaurant and you really like the food, and then you'll tell the owner, the food is fabulous. Really, you should raise your prices. So my wife says, we're going to this restaurant now. You want them to raise prices? It's going to cost us more money,
We've mentioned Pittsburgh a few times. Clearly, it's a huge character in the book. I'm assuming it's going to be a huge character in the documentary. How have you integrated with that culture, and what are you expecting from the Pittsburgh film community?
Yeah, so Pittsburgh has sort of become a secondary market for film. Years back, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years back, there was tax credits that were offered to film here in the city. And because of that, we've had quite a lot that's filmed here. Mayor of Kingstown is here all the time. But there's been lots of movies, and Pittsburgh has a very gritty look to it that could double as New York in certain areas without the price tag of New York. And also what happened, for those of you who may not be familiar with Pittsburgh or the history, is we are, the steel mill capital of the world, or once was, right? So all of the old mills have now lent themselves as great places to build sound stages. And so there's a lot of that also happening in the downtown area. There's a lot of active involvement. There's the Pittsburgh Film Fest, which I think the director of our film said next year it's actually going to be included in potential Oscar nominations for shorts and, for the films that come through that festival scene. So that's really exciting. The producer of our film, and I'm going to get the organization wrong because she's told it to me a million times, but she is the head of, I think it's Women in Film here in Pittsburgh. So it's nice because not only is she familiar with our project and the other things that are happening, but she's familiar with the overall climate and culture, and is always networking and engaging, especially with the women in film. What is sort of on our side is that we have this large engine of people that have consumed either the restaurant, estimated 1 million customers over the time that my dad was in business. And now, thousands of people who have read the book and maybe shared the book with somebody or have been to one of our events, even if they didn't know about the book. So that in itself, whenever you crowdsource with a really large support network, it's a little easier to get accomplished what you're looking to get accomplished. Now, that being said, yes, of course, our first, thing is we want to get a financier that, wants to do it kind of interest free and, it kind of gives us creative reins and doesn't want any ownership, right? Which is what every, creative person wants. Or we want Netflix to just come in and say, hey, we love this trailer. We're going to buy it and give you X amount, and we're going to develop it and incur all of the costs. But knowing that there's other avenues, and because Ryan sort of engaged the film community here in Pittsburgh, I think that that's to our benefit, that we're not his first film out of the gate.
What I'm excited about beyond the movie itself is I have a pretty good feeling, whether it's a festival or a screening or however else this is shown, there's going to be some really great food at the after party.
Yeah.
And I've been to too many screenings, too many film festivals, and I've been last week. I was at a Netflix thing, and they had absolutely phenomenal food. They ordered catering from one of LA's best restaurants. We're always talking about it afterwards while we're eating great food. Yep, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what I'm learning from this conversation, you may still be looking for more funds coming in as you're going through this process. And what I've learned through doing these interviews is a lot of our audience is restaurateurs, it's chefs, it's people who love good food, they collect wine. One of our an old episode was from someone who insures wine cellars. And that episode did so well because so many people wanted to find out, am I protecting my investment? So just in case, is there a pitch that you want to share with someone if you are looking for more? And worst case scenario, is there a website? Is there somewhere they can go or reach out if there is an investor package, if there is something more about what you're offering?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan and the producer Crystal would be the people that are kind of spearheading that process. The website, I believe, is ventureroadproductions.com. And, you can certainly get some more information. The director's name is Ryan Rust, like the metal, and the producer's name is Crystal Grandy. You can certainly reach out to me on my website, or you can use my email, mariacpalmer@yahoo.com. Absolutely, there will be an investor package for sure. If we do go the crowdfunding route, I mean, we've certainly talked about some of the things that we might want to do and some of the incentives, and just for the normal everyday person, going to my dad's restaurant was synonymous with his complimentary free zucchini. There's going to be a lot of scenes within the restaurant, and there's going to be a lot of zucchini that might need to be consumed during those scenes. And as much as I might want to be that person, I would be certainly willing to give those rights up to somebody who would come and support our film. So we're talking about creative ways to continually engage our population, because every single story of 1 million people can't be incorporated into this feature-length film or, 12-part 2-season series or, whatever this comes to be. but including some of those creatively in either kind of the opening trailer per se, or maybe at the end, so that everybody feels like they're heard and they get a chance to collectively be part of the story. Because I think that that's one important piece of the book. We have so many people who have given endorsements, and so many people that have been part of the book. That's also lent itself to a marketing arm that we definitely want to replicate in the film as well, and give people the buy-in. So yes, absolutely. Still looking for investors, and maybe that will be a streaming agency, but like anything, I am constantly bootstrapping and figuring out the next step. So certainly, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to get you in the right direction, and to figure something out, and to help you be a part of the creation of something that we feel is going to be very meaningful, not only for our own family history, but for Pittsburgh history, and also for food and restaurant history. So yes, please get involved. We love it.
That all sounds so exciting. And so just to wrap up, first day of production is this Sunday. What is that? October 5. As documentary productions go, there's going to be a few days. There may be more production days in the future as the story discovers itself. We're talking in-person interviews. We're talking dramatic reenactments. We're talking any found footage from the old days we're going to try to put in there. Do we have anything?
Yes, we do. Weirdly enough, so your favorite story, Joe, I don't know if I need to remind you about it, but you loved, there's a story
Pin on the
about
wall, right?
Yes, the pin on the wall, you know it.
Oh yeah.
So the server from the pin on the wall, believe it or not, he was a young college student at the time, and he was in a quote unquote video production class back then. And he actually took video footage that we had no idea about. And he didn't even know that the documentary was coming to fruition. He randomly sent me 20 minutes of footage of in front of the restaurant, the cars pulling up, customers coming in and out, walking through the main vestibule, going in the back to the kitchen, seeing all the servers, seeing my dad's cousin Pino toss the pasta live. Seeing my dad kind of come in and interact with people behind the scenes. So that is, as you know, for documentary, that is golden. So yes, we do have previous footage. We also have commercials, from that day and age, lots and lots of news clippings and plaques, as my dad was the plaque man, right? So there's a lot actually. As far as a documentarian goes, I told Ryan, I said, you've sort of hit and everything is, of course, organized on our part, but I said, you have hit like the hoarders of documentary world. Like, you actually have too much. So you're going to have to spend all of your time thinking about what you want to include, and the memorabilia and paraphernalia that you would like to include, and the stories that you would like to include, not vice versa, which, for him is amazing, because every other documentary that he's done, it's normally one, very small traditional storyline, and there's a lot here.
That's incredible. And you're right, that is a documentarian's paradise, all that content. As we wrap up, we're here with Maria Palmer and Joseph Costanzo. The book was on the rocks, becoming a documentary. Production literally starts this week. Exciting times, and as we're learning from this conversation, it's not remotely over. There's so much to do. There's so many things up ahead. If you love Pittsburgh, if you love food, if you love good food, if you love chef stories, if you love restaurant stories, one more time, what are the best ways to learn more, to reach out, whether it's creative or the book itself or the investor package? Just wrap up by telling us the best ways to learn more and find you.
Yeah, I would say the easiest way to find me is just go right onto my website, www.mariacpalmer.com. From there, there's links to all of our social media, our handle is at Joe Costanzo, Costanzo, Primadonna, like our restaurant, Primadonna. You can certainly email me and get in touch that way. Joe had mentioned, we do all kinds of events. There's an events tab right on the website, so you can find out. I update it right after we get off this call. I'm going to go on and update it again with some pictures and a reel from an event that we did last night. So, anything that is popping up, I am putting on the calendar so you could see where we're going to be and how you can tap into that. If you have an idea for an event or, something that book club, or, maybe you want to get involved more in this film as an investor. Yes, those are all things that we would certainly like to chat further about.
Mr. Costanzo, once again, it's a pleasure. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your stories. Thank you what you've done and you're doing for Pittsburgh. So thank you on behalf of the state. I have no authority to say that, but thank you anyway.
I really appreciate you. Out of all the podcasts that we've done, and we've done probably hundreds, I enjoy you and your podcast the most. You're so enthusiastic, and you really, really come on as so credible, and you really, really try to help us out and your audience. So we thank you so much. We really do.